In the menu bar, we have options like File, Edit,
Mm.
View, Tools. Those are the options that we have discussed. Told you solutions, run Windows and help, not very
Mm.
important. But I told you in the next class, we'll discuss about very important topic called libraries.
Yes.
Generally, what do you mean by library? What do you mean by library? A library is a place. Hmm. A library is a place where we can store files, or where we can keep the records, where we can keep the articles. So where we can keep the information, right? Now today we are discussing about the libraries in SAS. That's why this is called as a SAS library. What is a SAS library? SAS library is a place. It is a place where we can store SAS files. SAS library is a place where we can store the SAS files. There are four different types of SAS files are there. We have four types of SAS files. What are the four types of SAS files we have? The first one is called as a SAS datasets. You know about datasets? These are the things every day we are creating. Okay. And the next one is SAS view files. We call that as SAS views. These are another type of files. I'll show you how to create a SAS view file. Then we have a third type of files called SAS catalogs. There are going to be certain files which are very important to maintain the SAS. And also in future, we create macros and user-defined formats. These macros and user-defined formats will be stored in catalogs. And finally, we are going to have fourth type of file called MDDB files. MDDB stands for multi-dimensional database files. Multi-dimensional database files are called MDDB files. So these four type of files comes under SAS files: datasets, views, catalogs, and MDDB files. We store these files in a place, and that is called as a SAS library. And in SAS, we have two types of libraries. One is called as a system-defined libraries. What do you mean by system-defined? These are automatically you will get into your system when you install SAS software in your laptop, in your system. So whenever you install SAS software in your laptop, automatically you will get a few libraries, and those automatically getting libraries are called as a system defined. So that means you will get these through system by default. And these system libraries are again two types. These system defined libraries are two types. The first one is called as a permanent system defined libraries. The second one is called as a temporary system defined libraries. You know, here I have an Explorer window. In the Explorer window, we have four folders. One among them is libraries. When I click on this libraries folder, can you see we have six libraries. Now these six libraries comes under system defined. So these are automatically you will get into a system by default. Okay. Now out of these six libraries, the first one is maps. The second one we have a maps GFK, and then we have a maps SAS, and then we have a SAS help, and we have a SAS user. So these five libraries are examples for system-defined permanent libraries. And we have one more library is work. Work is example for system-defined temporary library. So these are the six libraries. By default, you'll get into your system. Now we'll see one by one what are these libraries, what information you can see. The first library that we have in maps. If I open this maps library, can you see what do we have? We have some ready-made, already created SAS datasets. All these are SAS datasets. Okay. We have predefined, already created, ready-made SAS datasets. Now, whenever you want to practice SAS in future, whenever I want to practice any statement or any program, I want to have some example dataset. If I have some already created dataset, I can use this dataset to test my code. So we want to have some ready-made, predefined datasets. So now if you want, you can go to the maps library. But unfortunately, all these libraries, the information present in this library, in these datasets belongs to geographical data. Personally, I can't understand the geographical data, so that's why I don't use much these libraries. But if you're interested, if you know a little bit of geographical data, you can use these data sets for practice purpose. Okay, so these are the ready-made data. In today's class, I will tell you how to access these data sets whenever you want to practice. This is about a maps library. Right now, we are in the maps library. I want to go to main page of the libraries window. Can you see when I'm having a maps library here on the toolbar, we have a yellow color folder symbol up one level. If I click on this up one level, it will go to one step back in the libraries folder. Now we are in the main page of the libraries. The next library that we have in a maps GFK, I don't know why the same information they have given in three libraries. So maps GFK, maps SAS, all three are going to have the same data. See, here also we have a geographical data, Afghanistan, Africa 1, Albania, Algeria, Angola. In this way, we have a geographical data. Again, if you want, you can use these data sets in future for practice purpose. I want to go to one step back again. If I click on this, I'll go to one step back, main page of the libraries window, and we have one more library called Maps as. Here also we have the same data. Can you see? Africa, Algeria, Andorra, Armenia, Austria, Asia, like that one. So they have given the same data in three libraries like this one. By the way, these three libraries are present only from SAS 9.4 version. Now, once you're done with these three libraries, then we have one more library called SAS user. In future, I told you, remember a few days back, if I create any data set, automatically where the data set will be stored in the work library. If you store any data set in the work library, I told you the data set only present for that session. If you close the session, the data set which is present in the work library will be get deleted. Now, what is the point of if you lose the data set? So that's why we never save our data sets in the work library. But if you want to save, you can save it in the SAS user library. But we don't recommend you to save it in the SAS user because if you install SAS software or any programming tool in your laptop, where will you install it? You will install in the C drive. Because all the programming applications where it will be saved, where it will be installed in the C drive. But in the C drive, along with these programming applications, you're also going to have your operating system. Highly risky, very sensitive area. If suddenly your system has been crashed or virus infected, what you need to do? You have to format your C drive. If you format your C drive, whatever the data we have in the C drive, that will be get deleted. So the SAS user library will be get created in C drive. So that means if you save your data set in the SAS user, this will be saved in the C drive, which is not advisable. So we don't recommend you to save it in the SAS user library. And then after that, we have the next library, which is the SAS help. From today onwards, I'm going to use this library very extensively. If I click on the SAS help library, now can you see here we can find two types of files. By the way, already you know that one these are called SAS datasets. And then we have a second type of file. By the way, these are called catalogs. These are called SAS catalogs. So we have seen so far SAS datasets and we have seen catalogs. If I go a little bit down in the SAS library, we can find a third type of file, which are called SAS MDDB files, multi-dimensional database files. And if I go a little bit down, we can see the fourth type of files. So these are called SAS views. So dataset, view, catalog, and we have the fourth type of file called MDDB files. We can find all these four types of files in SAS library. I will explain about the catalogs and views later, but we don't use MDDB files anyhow. But the most important thing is SAS dataset. From today onwards, whenever I'm trying to explain or demonstrate a program, I need to have a sample or example dataset. I'm going to depend on now the SAS library. In the SAS library, we have so many predefined ready-made datasets. Out of those, few datasets I'm going to use very often from today onwards. One such dataset that we have a class dataset in the SAS library. Okay. Can you see? Here we have a dataset called class. I'm going to use this dataset from today onwards every day in one class, maybe 30 to 40 times. Why so special? This dataset is not very big and not very small. It contains 5 variables and 19 observations. When you're coming tomorrow's class, please go through this dataset see what are the variables we have, how many observations, what are the values that we have in sex, age, like that one. I will ask you a few questions on this data set. We have 5 variables, 19 observations. This is about 19 students' data. Each and every student name, their gender, age, height, and weight. In that way, we have total 19 students information. That means we have 19 observations. We have 19 observations. Now, I'm going to use this data set very often from today onwards whenever we are practicing, whenever I'm explaining certain code. I will tell you how to access this data set in today's class. Apart from this class data set, we have another data set called cars. I'm going to use this cars data set also very often. This dataset contains 428 car models, and then who is the manufacturer, model, type of the car, origin, MSRP, invoice rate, how many cylinders, engine size, what is the mile per gallon in city, mile per gallon in highway. We have information about 428 car models. This dataset also I'm going to use very often. And we have one more dataset called heart in the same SAS library. I'll use this dataset also very regularly. Here we have 5,209 cholesterol patients and their cholesterol status, whether they are the smokers, if they are a smoker, what kind of smoker they are, if they have a cholesterol, is it like, borderline or like a high, a normal or something like that one? What is their blood pressure status, smoking status, weight status, systolic and diastolic blood pressure, their height, weight, if anybody has been died, the reason why they have been died, because of the cancer or a cerebral vascular disease or a cardiac problem or other disease or unknown reason. In that way, we have information about 5,209 patients information. So we have some very good, wonderful SAS data sets in the SAS library. Whenever you want to practice, you can use this data set to test your code. Understand this, sir? So that is about SAS help library. So that means these are the maps, GFK, maps, SAS help, and SAS user. All these 5 comes under permanent libraries. But we have one more library here, which is called as a work. Work is a temporary library. You know what you mean by temporary? Unfortunately, again, work is a temporary. At the same time, this is a default library. That means whenever I create a data set, automatically the data set will be saved in the work library. Again, but work is a temporary. If I close the session and reopen the session, whatever the data set has created in the work library, that will be get deleted. So that's why this is called temporary. So that means in the real time, none of these libraries are very helpful. No one is helpful. Since these libraries are not very helpful, what I'm going to do as a SAS programmer, I will create my own library. If you're creating your own library, and that is called as a user-defined library. What do you mean by user? As a SAS programmer, if you are creating your library, your own library, then that is called as a user-defined library. As a SAS programmer, if you are creating your own library, then that is called as a user-defined library. And by the way, again, user-defined libraries are 2 types. So the first one is a temporary user-defined library, and then next one is a permanent user-defined library. Permanent user-defined library. So again, temporary user-defined library is, what we can do? We can create it 2 different ways. One is by programming method, and the second one is by GUI method. Anybody knows what you mean by GUI? Graphical user interface. So by using programming method or by using a GUI method, you can create a user-defined temporary library. But we can create a user-defined permanent library by only one method. You know what is that? That is a by GUI method. GUI stands for graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. Okay. Now, tell me again one more time. What is a SAS library? SAS library is a place where we can store SAS files. And there are 4 different types of SAS files are available. One is datasets, second one is catalogs, third one is views, and the fourth one is MDDB files. Okay. And in SAS, we have 2 types of libraries. The first one is a system defined. The second one is user defined. What do you mean by system defined? These libraries will get along with our SAS installation. And that's why these are called